Okay. Hi, everyone. All right. Sorry, that took me a few minutes to get everything set up again. How's everyone doing? Thanks for coming in today and joining me on a Thursday live stream. And this is something I had promised to start doing more of is doing a live stream at a different time slot. Because I know for a lot of people, the normal time that I do on Sunday mornings for me is really late for a lot of you, and you just can't stick it out. But that's okay. I don't mind doing it at this time as well. So, excuse me. Um, as always, I'm always here to. I just want to make myself available for you. To answer any questions you might have from like one of my videos or anything about the Olympus cameras. And as you know, I've been kind of expanding into these other things like this Fujifilm and now I have a Panasonic. This GX85. This is an awesome little camera for the money. I mean, I got mine for like 325 bucks with a 12 to 32, and it's a pretty impressive little camera. But if you saw my last video or photo walk, or what did I called it, a drive-by, because I was in my car most of the time. It was so cold. Uh, I was comparing the L monochrome with the Pen F monochrome profile 2 and the Fujifilm Acros. Hi Serge, how are you? And I thought they all did a good job, for the most part. And yeah, surprise live stream room. And I didn't even promote this at all. I just decided that I would try and do a different time slot, So I'll do one around this time and then my normal Sunday mornings. Because during the week my schedule's a little bit random because sometimes I have to go to a job or something. But and then in the winter time, it's even harder for me to schedule something during the week. I mean, there's less jobs to do to go out and photo shoot, but then there's fewer nicer days to go out and do things. So like today's kind of a really nice day. It's a little cold, but the sun is out, which is always nice in the wintertime. And those are the times that I say, okay, when the weather clears up, I'll go out and do this photo shot. Because for real estate photography, it always helps to have good light. It makes a big difference. And I tell people if it can wait till a better day, I'd rather go on a day that it's nice out for best results. But anyway, things have slowed down a little bit on that side too. But I have a couple jobs coming up on Monday that I need to go to. Hey, that's neither here nor there. But hi, everyone. Hey, John. You changed your name to John Matthews. So, actually, I think John Matthews, I think you're on Instagram, right? Under that name or something like it. And hi, Darwin, Kent, and Best Picks. Hi. Best Picks, I didn't really have a topic today because I didn't really even was able to decide if I could do a live stream today or not until like after lunch. And then I just posted and I said, okay, I can squeeze one in. Because like I said, I did promise to start doing live streams at a different time slot. For a lot of people, the time slot I was in wasn't working. And, I said I could put this off until I have a topic or some prepping done. But then, when you get into that sort of mindset of just waiting until you're ready, sometimes you never get to it, right? Just like in photography, if you wait for the best weather or best conditions or wait till you go somewhere special, you'll never go out and take pictures. So it's best to just do it, like the Nikon theme. It's just do it. Just go online. If anybody shows up, great. If nobody, that's fine too, But let's see. Oh, it's really warm. Thanks for Roman saying it's really warm in Germany thanks to global warming. I'm happy. And I'm very jealous. But yeah, global warming, bring it on, man. I hate the cold. Oh, hey Chuck, you were trying the forum but couldn't get a password. Okay, I'll look into that. because the forum, I shouldn't have rushed that. I should have looked at different forum softwares a little bit more. I just went to the WordPress plugins and picked the one that seemed to have the highest rating, and said, okay, that's good enough. Again, sort of my attitude of just do it. Don't worry about prepping or doing anything. Just go out and do things. And now that I've got some users there, I don't know if I can change it now. Because I think PHPBB looks like a better forum software. It'd be separate from the website, meaning I'd have to link to it a little bit differently, and it won't be as seamless, but excuse me. I don't know. I'll give that some thought. I think the way the forum is now is fine for most, because I'm not trying to make that forum about, something like MU43 forums that already has a huge, forum membership, and they have a lot of great members and very helpful over there. The forum on my website is really so I can connect a little bit better with you guys, and not for it to become some sort of catch-all for everybody shooting Olympus or Micro Four Thirds. It's really about me connecting and being able to keep track of tutorial requests or video requests and questions, because the way the form is now, or the way I did it before, is people would use the contact form or just email me directly, and unfortunately, it kind of gets lost in the fog, as I like to say, is that I'll respond to an email if I try to respond to all of them, but sometimes they just kind of stack up or get lost in all of the other junk email I get. So I put the form there so that I can always go back and look at in a threaded view and see which ones I've responded to, which ones I haven't, etc. Because I just feel so bad when somebody asks me a question and then a month goes by and there's no response, and I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry, I missed your email. So that's the best way to reach out to me now, is probably through the forum. And if it needs to be a private message, something you don't really want to share publicly, that's okay too. You can still email me. And that said, if anybody's ever emailed me and I didn't respond, just email me again, because if I haven't responded by now, like if it's been more than 2 weeks, just email me again and I will be happy to reply. Because it's, I really want to try and help as many people as I can, and I feel bad when I miss emails. Okay, so let me back up a little bit. I'm going to go. So Barney says, great tutorials. Oh, thank you. Yeah, you guys are lucky. You got good weather now. It's supposed to warm up here the next couple days, like in the 50-degree range Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is Celsius. Oh, hey, okay. Hi, John. How are you? Yeah, I think I saw you registered in my forum. And then Serge is asking about the batteries. I did get one more battery in. I'm waiting for one more for my Fujifilm camera. But it's testing good right now. I mean, it's drawing the correct number of milliamps. So it seems to be a legit battery. So as soon as I get the Fujifilm battery in, I'm going to test it, and then I can comfortably say, I've received 3 batteries. All 3 have been 100% solid. You just can't get one battery and say this is great, Oh, thanks for Sam is saying that PHBB is really good. So yeah, I may switch to that. While I still only have a couple dozen members, right, in my current forum, it'd be easy enough for everyone, I think, to switch over. And there's only about 20 posts or so right now, so I'll give that some thought. Maybe after the live stream, maybe I'll do that tonight. Oh, Best Pics, are you in Australia? Is that why you're getting brush fire smoke in your smell? Yeah, that's awful. I saw some of that on the news. I hope everyone's okay. So Rob Shoot Photos, how you doing? He's a regular poster or commenter on my YouTube videos. The 45 to 150 f4 lens that might be coming. What are my thoughts, or what lens would you like them to design? I think that'll be a good lens if it's small, compact, weather sealed. I think it'll be a good alternative to what's out there now, the 40 to 150 at f2.8, right? If they can cut the size down in half, because they're cutting the light in half, right? So just intuitively, you'd think it'd be half the size. I would be pretty happy with that, but ultimately, it's just going to depend on price, right? So the 40 to 150 2.8 is what, $1,200, $1,300? So if they can make this lens, closer to $700, $800, I think they might have a winner there. But the problem is, every time they come out with a pro lens, they're $1,000 plus. Sorry, I'm using my same coffee mug, my Trek mug. I'm just a creature of habit. Even though it's like in the afternoon, I still gotta have like some coffee while I do a live stream, just so things are, I don't know, it's just creatures of habit kind of thing. But yeah, that's my thoughts. I haven't heard anything about what it's gonna, size-wise or price-wise, what it's gonna be. I mean, they'll announce it when they announce it. But it's not a lens I'd probably get it even so, because I have the 40 to 150 kit lens. It's $99, and it's only going to be at one stop slower on the long end than this 45 to 150 Pro lens. And that $99 lens, man, that thing is really sharp. I mean, it's good enough. I mean, unless you really need an extra stop of light at the long end. Now, what I like about, and the other thing is, if the 45 to 150, or the 40 to 150 Pro lens 2.8 that they have now, you can add the teleconverters to it. So it's really on my short list of lenses to get, despite its size, because it is very versatile when you add on the teleconverters. Okay, so let's see. And as far as the lenses I'd want them to start making, I'd really like to see some more pancake lenses, because I really don't enjoy, these, like, this like Panasonic has a 20 millimeter prime. This is their 25 f1.7, but they have a 20 millimeter f1.7 pancake, which is sharp and fast and lightweight. I mean, we need more lenses like that, really, to really be in the spirit of Micro Four Thirds, because even like the 12 to 40 Pro lens is kind of bulky for most of their cameras outside of their high-end EM1s, Mark II. Oh, Vishnu, how are you? Hello, Rob. I recently got the PL8. Most shoot indoors with the kit lens. Doesn't give depth of field, yes. The 45-1.8 looks close for indoors and slow for kids. Wanted to check if the 12 to 40 is a good choice. Can I get decent bokeh? Well, yeah, it's not going to be night and day difference between the 12 to 40 Pro and your kit lens already. Because indoors, you're probably shooting, right around in the, between 12 millimeters and 25 millimeters anyway. And at that focal length, there's not a lot of depth of field to be had. And I did a video comparing the kit lens against the 12 to 40 Pro. So you can watch that video, because I do sort of a depth of field comparison between the two lenses that you can check out. And I also compared the kit lens against the 45 millimeter. And ultimately, my recommendation, I think, was just the kit lens is good enough for most situations. Now, indoors, every stop of light helps. So if you need a faster shutter speed, having that extra stop of light is definitely an advantage. And more than a stop of light, maybe two stops of light at the long end. In that case, that would be worth the investment if you think your shutter speeds are too slow and you want to shoot at lower ISOs. But for depth of field, indoors, it's not going to make much difference because usually indoors, right, there's a wall behind you. And that's going to be close to the subject, and that's not going to be out of focus, or furniture and tables and chairs, things like that. None of those things are really going to be out of focus. Even with, a full frame camera, when you're at that wide of an angle at just about any aperture, you're not going to really see much depth of field. But again, check out my other videos where I compare the kit lens, and that'll give you a better feel for in real life what the differences look like, and it may be enough. It may be enough that you think it's it's good enough. Tusker says you've been a great with the response for questions both on the channel and the forum. Oh, I try, I really try. Honestly though, the questions have been getting tougher as I do these live streams. I have to really think, and tougher in the respect that I'm getting questions in areas of photography that I don't really have any experience with, right? I can only extrapolate from the experience I do have and make suggestions. Like like people always ask me about northern lights and astrophotography, and I've done it a few times with some success, but it's not my area, and fortunately, the recommendations I made were good. People were, what the response was, yeah, that worked great. But like I said, I'm just extrapolating from my base experience, not because I have direct experience in that. And that's what I mean by the questions are getting harder for me. Native lens, but with my limited budget, I see the Panasonic 25 1.7 affordable for short term. I think the 25 f1.7. I got two of them actually. This lens, I think, is excellent for photography on Panasonic and Olympus. As long as you're not trying to do sports action or video, this lens for it goes between $99 and $149 all the time, and that's a steal. That's a steal for a lens of this quality, I think. Okay, Kent's asking, my new 45 arrived yesterday. Contrast and sharpness was good, even full open. This lens will be a good complement to my Leica 15mm. I know, the 15mm f1.7. I love that lens. I'm so jealous. But yeah, the 45 is excellent. Yeah, Roman's saying pancake 2.8s would be nice. I don't think they'll do a pancake 75mm. A pancake 45... I mean, I don't know. I don't think this 45 is that bad. I mean, I have a lens hood on it. I'm pretty content actually with this, but if they make a pancake, all the better. But I don't know if I'd want to give up a stop of light on a 45mm. I really like shooting with this wide open. It's kind of the point of this lens, in my opinion. But the shorter focal lengths, pancake lenses would be nice. Another pancake 17 at 1.7, another because Panasonic has pancakes 14s and a 20. The 14 is a little slow at 2.5, but still. How about a 12mm pancake, like 2.8? That would be awesome. Yeah, the Panasonic 20F. Yeah, Ron says he's getting the 20mm f1.7. Is that the pancake one? I didn't know they designated that as a Leica. So did they come out with a new one with a Leica branding, or are you talking about the standard 20mm? Rob's saying he's rocking the 40 to 150 kit lens. The Panasonic 30 to 100 is 2.8 is really nice size for the price. Yeah, I think since the EM1 Mark II and the EM5 Mark III, the EM1X, they have phase detect on them. That's really solved a lot of the issues that people may have been having with Panasonic lenses on their Olympus cameras. It's not gonna the lens is not gonna operate at 100% of its ability like it is when it's on a Panasonic camera. But for photography, it's great. Oh, okay, Ron, you meant the 15. Yeah, the 15 is that's definitely a lens that when I have a lot of extra cash, I might get. Not that the lens is that expensive. I mean, it's about $400, 500. Uh, it's just a lens I don't need. It would be a pure like you know toy purchase for me. Just something I would enjoy, not something I could use. If I could use it professionally, I might be able to justify it, but I can't. Alex is asking, hi Rob, I have the M10 Mark II with a 40 to 150, the 14 to 42, and the 25-1.7 Panasonic and a fisheye 7.5 Artisans. I'm finding myself limited by the system resolution, landscapes and cityscapes and streets. So that would imply that, and it continues, I'm looking at the A7 II. I wouldn't buy the A7 II. It's a little bit older camera, and it's I've seen them for like $1,000, including the lens, the 24 to 70. But I think honestly, if you're struggling with the resolution, that kind of implies what I was going to say implies you do some cropping, right? Or when you're doing your landscapes, you like to zoom in and look at the details. But really, if you need more resolution, you really need to step up to like an A7R3, unless that's what you meant, A7R2 instead of the A7 II. But an A7R3 or the A7R4, I mean, that's a huge jump in price too. But those things will give you resolution that will be, I think, money well spent if that's what you want. Going to an A7R2 with just 24 megapixels, you're not going to be happy with that. It's just not big enough jump in resolution. And then, you have to, if money no object, I guess you can try it, but I wouldn't spend, $1,000 to $1,500 for a system like that. That's only 24 megapixels for landscapes. So I would step up much higher. And I did a video, Alex, where I compared my Pen F against my friend's Nikon Z7, which is a 48 megapixel camera. And it wasn't really apples to apples kind of comparison, but I did compare the two pictures because we went on the same photo walk together and I pulled some pictures together that were similar. And you can see for yourself, even that big jump from 20 megapixels to 48 megapixels, there wasn't a huge difference. So watch that video. It's called Why I Don't Miss Full Frame. And you can see some of the picture comparisons between a 48 megapixel camera and a 20 megapixel. And then you'll see what I mean by just going up to 24 megapixels is not going to cut it. And going up to 48 megapixels, you really need to get the very best lenses to appreciate that 48 megapixels. And landscape photos also bring the challenge of atmospheric distortion, where even if you have a very high resolution camera, because the landscape is so far away, you're not going to see any benefit to that high resolution because it's all lost in the atmosphere. CC Rue is asking, how many more between 1.2 and 1.8? What? If you're asking me in terms of how many stops of light is that, I think that's 2/3 of a stop. It's not that big a deal. That's why I don't own any of the 1.2 lenses. It just for the money and the weight of those lenses, it's not worth it. I'm happy with 1.8. Ken saying I should get the 15 to play with. I don't know. That's $500 I could put into something else. There's a lot of other things I need. Okay. Oh, okay, Alex. So the A7 II is the only one that fits your budget. Yeah, you're best. It's best to wait. Don't spend $1,000. I think your money will be wasted. Even a secondhand EM1 Mark II. Alex is asking about it going from the EM10, I think, to EM1. It's not worth it. You know, for landscape type photography. I mean, there's some argument to be made for the high-res shot mode, but I didn't think it was enough. You know, the EM10, and I should talk about this some more. Let me get through a few questions. DVC is saying, if you want resolution, go for a Hasselblad or a Phase 1. Yeah, I know, 100 megapixels, right? Or the Fujifilm, they got 100 megapixel. I don't think the A7 II, Roman's asking, does the A7 II have 5-axis? I don't believe it does. And Donald's saying he has the EM5 Mark II and it does all he needs. Yeah, that's a fabulous camera, you know, the EM5. The Mark I and the Mark II. All of the Olympus cameras are really good. The Sigma 30 1.4. I looked at that lens. It's a really good deal if you need that 1.4 aperture. But I ended up buying the 25 millimeter f1.7 because I went to the store and I bought this 25 1.7 over the Sigma 30 1.4 because this was, you know, about half the price, right? And it's 90% there, I think. You know, I don't think you'd be able to tell the difference between this lens in a blind test between this lens and a Sigma 30. It just doesn't make any sense for the average person, you know. You know, people say you can see the difference between like this lens and the 30 millimeter f1.4, but I can't. Not to my eyes. I just couldn't. And that lens is really big on our cameras because I think it's designed for APS-C cameras, so it has a bigger image circle, hence, you know, making the lens itself larger. And it was just awkward to me on the camera. So I went with the smaller one, even though it's a little bit slower, just a hair. You know, a third of a stop. It's not third of a stop difference and half the cost. I think 25 1.7 would be better, especially if you can get it for like $99. Okay, Vishnu. Yeah, check those videos. CC, yes, sir. Thank you, Bob. Okay. Hi, Rob. Just bought an EM1 Mark II. After 1 week, I noticed dead pixel white one. I saw it with pixel mapping. Good. No, I wouldn't worry about it. He's asking if he should be concerned about a white pixel. Yeah, I noticed the white pixel. I think even in my EM5 Mark III that I just bought. I think it was that I got so many cameras. I don't know. But I was seeing a white pixel. I just used the pixel mapping and I never saw it again. And on a longer term basis, you know, my Nikon had a white pixel in it very early on, and I killed it, you know, with the pixel mapping feature and never had a problem again. And I think the way it works is, you know, if you got 2 pixels, right, it just copies the pixel next to it over and disables that pixel. So it's not fixing it, I don't think. I think it's just, you know, and pixel to pixel is imperceptible, you know. So yeah, don't worry about it, Catalin. Oh, the A7 II has IBIS. Okay, so the Sony A7 II does have 5-axis IBIS, which I think is fine for photography, but I've seen people try to do video with it, and it was terrible. DVC says the GFX is rubbish, and you should get the Phase 1. Interesting. That's way over my head, those cameras. Way over my budget, I should say. Yeah, full frame. Plato's saying full frame is has 3 stops of a dynamic range, and yeah, definitely if you need to recover things. And I've said this before, man. If I mess up an exposure by 3 or more stops, I'm not. That would be rare, that I mess it up that badly. So having that dynamic range is not as critical for me anyway. But I don't work in an area like event photography where you're constantly working in dynamic scenes where you're going from room to room and the lighting can change dramatically, and maybe you didn't change the settings on the camera fast enough, right, to adjust for that. So I can see where a professional might need, if they're in that kind of situation, might need full frame and have that flexibility in post-processing because things happen so fast. For me, I'm on a tripod, I have light stands, when I do my real estate, and I don't have any dynamic range issues really. And if it's more than 3 stops, because a lot of the scenes I do are more than 3 stops. I mean, there's 7, 8, 9 stops difference. I bracket in that case. So, and most photographers will bracket a shot if they know they're going into a scene like landscape, for example, where it's going to be a high dynamic range. They'll either bracket or they'll use a graduated ND filter. But they'll do some photographic technique to compensate for high dynamic range scenes. The only reason you need to recover shadows and highlights is honestly when you mess something up, or you're in a situation like I was saying where you're going from room to room or location to location. The lighting changes so fast you didn't have time to adjust your camera. Oh, Rue watched the electronic shutter video. Yeah, that I spent a lot of time on that video. I'm glad that helped you though. Vision is saying in India the Olympus MFT market is too small and struggling to get used lenses. Really? What are some affordable options when learning and trying out lenses before setting? I'm not sure what you're asking me there. Are you asking me what are some affordable lenses or what are some other affordable cameras? I'm sorry, if you could ask me a little bit differently, I'll try and answer you. Vishnu, I'm not sure what your question is there. You're welcome, Andrea. Oh, hi, IQ from Greece. Thanks for coming in. And thank you, Best Shots. Huh. M43 is rare in the US. I guess so. It's hard for me to say if it's rare or not. Let's see. Alex asking, do I shoot anything else other than Olympus? Not seriously. I do have a lot of other cameras. Like I was saying, I have this Fujifilm X-T30, which I just bought because I wanted to try their film simulations. And I should have just got an XT1 for like $300 instead of but because I have this channel, I wanted to be able to compare late model Fujifilm against our Olympus cameras for the benefit of the channel, not because I really wanted to get this camera in particular. I would have been content with probably an XT1 or something, and saved a lot of money. But so I have that, but I don't really shoot with it. You know, I only take it out for comparison purposes. It has a lot of it's a very different camera for me in terms of handling, you know, how to control the camera. So if I pick up a camera to go out and shoot, I'm going to grab my Olympus, but that's only because I really know how to get the best out of the Olympus cameras. But fortunately, last night when I took this out, not last night, the night before last, and I'd made that video for the monochromes, I got much better results than I normally do with this camera. So I am starting to get a feel for it. But when I first picked it up, man, I couldn't even format the memory card in here. It was really frustrating. I think I had to get the manual out and say, how do you format an effing memory card in this camera? And it's in the user menu, but you know, little things like that are you know, keeping me from really using this camera to any extent, because I'd really like to compare the Fujifilm film profiles against the Olympus. I've done 1 or 2 videos like that already, but I want to do it more in different scenarios. Like I want to try the Fujifilm Chrome simulation against the Olympus Vintage 3. And because not that they're that close, but they have that sort of film look to it, in my opinion, the Vintage 3 art filter on Olympus. So I want to compare those two. Let's see. I have to go back. Ansley Wilkins, do you do street photography? People had to go today and felt very self-conscious about pointing the camera at people using an EM10 Mark II and a 50, so fairly discreet, but felt uncomfortable. Yeah, I'm still a little bit uncomfortable too, but what I'm finding is, and I don't really, the answer is no, I don't really do street photography and shoot people, but I'm getting there where, and you know what's working for me, and it's everybody's different, right? But I feel like if you smile more and try to make yourself obvious that you're a photographer, so people don't feel like you're being creepy, but you're really out there. Like I bought this hat. You may have seen it. I don't think I've worn it in the video yet, but I bought a new hat that's you know, very bright, meaning you can spot that thing a mile away. And of course, then you'll see me, then you'll see the camera, and if you're smiling, you know, you don't seem all that intimidating or creepy or weird. And I think that's going to help me to get out and do more street photography. But I need to do that. I need to do more. But there's a guy, I forget his name. Jamie Windsor has a great video on doing street photography. He went out with another guy that does street photography pretty regular, and then they went out together because Jamie Windsor never did street photography before that, and he really enjoyed it, and it was a great video to watch. So go to Jamie Windsor's YouTube channel, and he has a video on street photography. He has a few of them, but you'll see one where it was his first time going out. And that really encouraged me to go out. And I did ask a few people if I could take their picture, and they said yes. So watch that video, and I think that'll give you a lot more tips than I ever could. Ken is asking, if you put a lens cap and look in the EVF, you can see if you have some dead pixels. You can see them as black steady spots. If you have, run the program and they will be gone. Oh, okay. Outlook Thailand. Hi Rob, just purchased the EM5 III and a 25 f1.2 off to Thailand next week. And thanks for all the great advice. Oh, thanks. Yeah, I try. I try to, share what works for me anyway. I think it'll work for others. And I try to explain it as painfully slow as I can. At the same time, not try to bore people to tears. Valdez says, now that I have used my GX85, how do you like it? The 12 to 32, how does it compare to the Ollie 14? I love the 12 to 32 lens. I still haven't compared it directly against the 14 to 42, but my gut feeling is that it's a little bit contrastier. It delivers a little better images than the 14 to 42 kit lenses from Olympus. I really love that lens, but mainly for its wider focal length at 12 millimeters, and also for its compactness when I close it down. Look at that! I have my cell phone here, and it was completely hiding my EM5 Mark III. I couldn't even see I had it on my desk here. That's how small that camera is, with the 12 to 32 on here. I mean, this lens is tiny, and it weighs nothing. I love this. The GX85 is an amazing value camera. I wouldn't hesitate recommending that camera to anybody, just like I wouldn't hesitate recommending an EM10 Mark II. I think if you like the rangefinder style camera, this GX85 is, I think, would be my top recommendation for rangefinder, over and above the Olympus Pen PL8 camera or the PL9s that they have. I think this is a far better choice than those cameras. The only challenge I had with this, and it's happened again, and I don't think it's my fault this time, is the autofocus is not great in low light. And not anywhere, it's not like way worse than our Olympus cameras, but I did get a lot of focus hunting on the photo walk that I went the other night with the night photography, and I did the black and white shots. I was getting focus hunting with this camera when my other two cameras, the Fuji and my Olympus, what did I take? My Pen F. I was not getting the same, and I put the same lens on the Pen F and this GX85. So it's not the lens, it's this camera here. And the reason that's significant is because the Pen F has the worst autofocus of all the Olympus cameras I own, aside from my TG5. This has, but of all their interchangeable lens cameras, this one has the worst one. And again, that's not saying it's terrible. It's just saying it's not as good as my other cameras. And for this camera, the GX85, to be even worse than my Pen F is saying a lot. So now in good light and normal light, even slightly low light, it's fine. I didn't have any issues, but I was hunting in very, very low light with that camera more than I was with any of the other cameras I brought. And it's not the lens, and I don't think it's me. I got a feel for working with that camera now, at least enough that I think I can get something in focus. And it was struggling. Rob, I saw Roman saying, I saw your black and white comparison. I thought the Fuji would do better. The Pen F was always much better. Which one did I like more? I like the Pen F the best, but that's because I like, and it's all subjective, I like the contrastiness of it. Now that said, the Pen F in good light, the monochrome profile 2 is a little bit too contrasty in my opinion. In very bright or high contrasty situations, and I think a flatter curve in the highlight shadow would work better, which is adjustable on all the cameras. The GX85, the Fujifilm, the Pen F, they all have highlight shadow controls. But the Pen F has the additional controls of fine-tuning the red, green, yellow filters, plus it has additional colors that no other camera has. And like I said, it's adjustable, which no other camera has. If another camera has a red filter, that's it, it's red at a certain strength. But the Pen F, you can adjust the strength of the red filter right in camera. And again, these are things you can do in post-processing easily, but it's nice that when you're in the field, you can adjust things right there and see exactly what you're getting. I just feel like that's just how my brain works. I like to see with my naked eye the scene I'm looking at, and then make the adjustments in the camera to get what I want. Because a lot of times, if you just take a picture in RAW, and then go back and start post-processing, you still may not get what you expected, because you don't have a feel for the scene, right, when you're actually out there. Now, as time progresses and you gain experience, you'll get a feel for what a raw image will deliver, but I still prefer just doing it in the field. Hi, Sam. Thanks for coming in. DVC says, I'm now an MFT man. You have the M1 Mark II and a GX8, and I can make sure is the most convenient system I can create regardless of any conditions. Yeah, I mean, Micro Four Thirds is, honestly, any camera, right? You can get good results if you know what you're doing with that camera, you know what the limits of the camera are. Then you can always work around that, because no camera is particularly, significantly better than another camera. I mean, from full frame to Micro Four Thirds, like we were saying earlier, yeah, the full frame has a little more dynamic range, maybe one stop, even if it was 2 stops better in dynamic range. If you know what you're doing, you just bracket the shot, or you can work around it and still get the results that you need out of the camera. Hi, Siegfried. Oh, the Stylus One. Yeah, that's a cool little camera. JF says he has a Stylus One. Yeah, that's a cool little camera. It's too bad the compact camera market is not that strong. Otherwise, Olympus would still be making some. And that was a terrific camera. I would love to see that progress, Recent issue on my EM10 Mark II, I had banding in a lot of images, mostly in the skies. And no, I was not using electronic shutter. After some testing, I realized the issue was the anti-shock release option. Everything below 1/500th had banding in the highlights. Interesting. I haven't had that issue. Banding when you're outdoors, for like, we're not talking about banding from, say, artificial lighting, right? Like LEDs or fluorescence. If you're talking about banding outside, that's usually caused from the dynamic range of the scene is beyond the camera's limit, and you're either doing an HDR and trying to merge those, or it's you're resizing. I mean, banding is caused generally from the camera not being able to interpolate the variation in colors. Wow, but I have never had that issue. Good morning, Desmond. Oh, okay, Desmond. Yeah, thanks for stopping in. Say hello. I'm sorry you have to go. But I do the live streams on Sunday mornings, my time, 9:30 EDT, Eastern Daylight Time. CC, can I comment on AEL versus exposure compensation? I'm beginning to feel I don't need to use AEL. Okay, so AEL is auto exposure lock. So basically, there's an AEL button here on the Fuji, but most cameras have this button. So when you push it, it locks the exposure, and then you can just fire away without worrying about the lighting changing. Because a lot of times, you know, if the camera might get confused about what you're trying to expose for. Are you trying to expose for the sky, or are you trying to expose for the benches, you know, which are in the shadow? So you would lock the exposure on, say, the benches where where it's darker, so that you get the proper exposure without worrying about the camera missing the exposure. And then there's exposure compensation, where you control the exposure. So yeah, I rarely use auto exposure lock for myself. Exposure compensation, I do that the most. Okay, Rob, thanks for coming in. You're going out to do some sunset photography. Awesome. Grab my hat. DV says grab my hat. What do you mean? My new hat? I got a new, where is it? It might be in the car. Oh no, it's right here. This is my new lucky hat. It's what does it say there? Air Force One Presidential Crew. Washington, D.C. has a nice little USA thing on the front. Really nicely embroidered everywhere. And these are all real embroidery. It's not like a patch or a fake patch. It's actually been stitched into the hat. So when I go out with my street photography, I usually wear this hat. It's hard to miss, right? And I don't know, you kind of get this impression that maybe you're with law enforcement, or you know, you look legit, right? Like, I'm not trying to pretend to be somebody I'm not, but somehow this eagle, at least here in the US, right? When you wear a hat with a giant eagle on the front, it makes you look kind of legit, I think. I mean, it's all in my head. Maybe nobody cares, but that's just the way it is. That's just the way my brain works. Hi, Stephen. Greetings. Oh, hey, Francis. You're in Arizona. Okay, good. Yeah, Jamie Windsor is pretty awesome. Eric also agrees about Jamie Windsor. He's amazing. He really put some thought. He dialogues a lot, right? I don't know. I'm not like a writer or creator in that way. I do everything like I do at this live stream. I just sit down and I just do it. I don't prep at all or script anything. All of my videos are unscripted. I just sit down. Even my tutorials, there's no script. I just sit down and I just said, okay. You know, I think about what I'm going to say, but I just sit down and I say, okay, what logically makes sense? If I didn't know anything about this camera, what would be the best way to approach showing somebody how to use different features? So I give some thought to that, but I never prep any of my tutorials or videos. The only video I actually did any kind of hardcore prepping for, and hardcore is a strong word for me, is that one that somebody mentioned earlier about shutter speed, or the shutter mechanism. I did have to spend some time doing the graphics and things, but if you look at any of my videos, I hardly have any graphics or anything. Roman is saying he tried the GX85 and felt it was slow, and he confirms the Pen F is better than the Lumix. Yeah, the Pen F is better. It is better, but at less than half the cost, you know, you can get a GX85. So, like I said, if you like the rangefinder camera, I think this is the best value out there. I was really impressed, number one, with the menu system that Panasonic uses. It was so intuitive. I mean, not like when I grab my Fuji or any other camera, Sony. I was able to wrap my head around the menu system and set up everything but the tiniest details the way I wanted it. Like right now, somebody told me that this camera has a grain setting. I haven't looked for it since they mentioned that to me, but it wasn't obvious to me that it had one. But like I said, those are little things. The bulk of the things, though, I was fine. Okay, Derek's asking, what's the best mid-range Olympus camera from your honest view? The EM10 Mark II. that is the best camera, Derek. And I need to talk about that because a lot of people ask me, should I upgrade from the EM10 Mark II to say the EM5 or the EM1? And I'll do a video on that. But for most people, I'd say no, don't upgrade. The EM10 Mark II is great. If you're going to upgrade, I would probably go EM1 Mark II over the EM5. And I say that because for most people, you're only using one camera at a time, and the M1 Mark II is a better value in that respect. For me, because I have so many cameras, the M5 Mark II is filling a very specific need that I have. So that's why I got the M5 Mark III, and it's a fabulous camera. Nobody will be sorry they got that camera, but you know, if someone had to ask me, EM1 Mark II is probably Olympus's best camera for most people over the M5 Mark III. And the M10 Mark II is a fabulous camera, or the M10 Mark III. But I'd get the Mark II over the Mark III for mainly because you can deep dive into the Mark II's menus a little more. There's less, they didn't cripple it as much as they did the M10 Mark III. Okay, Vishnu's asking me again. I meant when I learn and try out different lenses, used lenses are ideal, but the tiny MFT market here. Any alternative options like third-party lenses are using non-micro four thirds adapter. Yes, okay. If you want to try some adapted lenses that are cheap, that are decent, you really can't go wrong with the Olympus Zuiko lenses. The 50mm f1.8 is an awesome lens, and you buy like a $15 or $20 adapter. That's a terrific alternative to the 45mm f1.8. But any 50mm f1.8 lens from Nikon, Olympus, Canon, any of those are excellent lenses. If you need to go a little bit wider, the only lens that would be a good alternative, it's a little bit pricey, but it's the 24mm f2. Where is that lens? I can't remember exactly the aperture on that one. Yeah, f2.8. This is the Zuiko. Let me take the lens hood off so you can kind of see. But you can see how small this lens is. It's very, very. Let me get my head out the way. This is very, very small and compact. This is a 24mm f2.8. So it's fast enough, right? And it's wide enough. This will give you sort of a more normal field of view than the 50mm. 50mm might be a little tight, but it's cheap. You can get them for like 30 bucks. The Olympus one. The Nikon ones are like $50 to $100. Same thing with the Canon. But the Zuiko, the 50mm, and the 50mm looks just like this. $30 all day long. This lens, this 24mm, this lens will run you closer to $150. So it's a little bit pricey. Another lens that, if you want to look at some vintage lenses, and by vintage I mean lenses made in the 70s and 80s, not the 50s, right? Not that old. Because the only good lenses left from that era, like between the 50s and 60s, are expensive, you know, because for a lens to be that old and still in good shape and have good image quality, they're going to be expensive. So you have to kind of look in the 1970s and 80s type manual focus lenses. There you can buy like a Vivitar. Those are very cheap, the Vivitar lenses, but you want to make sure you get the Vivitar lenses that were made by Cosina. And usually when you look on eBay and they advertise a Vivitar lens, they will say specifically that this was made by Cosina, Cosina. Those lenses, the Cosina lenses from Vivitar, and they will tell you it was made by Cosina, because that's a big deal. That's because they want to sell that lens and they want to tell you all the best things about that lens. They're going to tell you it's made by Cosina. And any of the Vivitar Series 1 lenses. So Vivitar Series 1, if you can find any of those lenses, and they're all cheap, $50 plus or minus from there, those would be good choices too. The lenses you want to avoid, okay, are zoom lenses from the 70s and 80s. Those just suck. There may be one or two really good ones out there, but they're going to be expensive. So just forget about zoom lenses, but look for primes from Vivitar Series 1 or the Vivitar Cosina made. And the 50mm lenses from Olympus. And I like the Olympus ones because they're really well made, all metal builds, and the optics are excellent. So that would be a good alternative for you, Vishnu. Sam is saying that the Pen-F will fail sometimes. And so for night street photography, Sam is saying the Pen-F fails sometimes, but his EM1 Mark II locks on like a missile. That is true, man. The low light focusing of the EM1 Mark II and the EM5 Mark III, and I assume the EM1X, I don't have that camera, is awesome. It's amazing how well those things focus at night. And the Pen-F of all the Olympuses I own is the worst one, but it was still better than the GX85 in my case. Okay, Barry's saying, I have mixed results with night photography on EM10 Mark II. City, seaside, fairgrounds, always hit and miss. Have you done many videos on this subject? I haven't done a lot of videos. I do have a recent video where I did take the EM10 Mark II out for some night photography with the kit lens, the 14-42 kit lens. And it did fine. I mean, it struggled time to time. But watch that video. I think it's very representative of what that camera is capable of with the kit lens. Now, if you put a prime on there, like a 17 f1.8, it's going to do a little better. But for the most part, I think that video I did, it's a pretty recent one, EM10 Mark II, where I did some night photography, was, I think is very representative of that camera's ability for street shooting. So if you watch that and you feel like, yeah, you're getting kind of the same results, or you say that, man, Rob's doing so much better in his photo walk than I do, it might be just an issue of you need to kind of get a feel for how to focus that camera at night. Because a lot of times it's very subtle thing. Like the most obvious thing is look for points of contrast, right? Sharp edges and things that you can focus on at night. But you start to get a feel for how the camera will focus in different conditions and how to get it to focus best. Because I was honestly, with my Fujifilm, the first few times I took it out, I was struggling with the autofocus on that. And this is the XT30. It's supposed to have the best autofocus ever, right? And I was struggling with it because I was so used to focusing like I did with my Olympus cameras that by going to a different system, I was off a little bit. But now I have a feel for that camera. And the EM10 Mark II, maybe that's all it is you need to get a little better feel for the camera. or just lower your expectations a little bit at night photography. I mean, to be totally honest, because with a kit lens, it does struggle a little bit. Oh, hey, Alex. Yeah, just email me some examples. That would be awesome of the banding issue. And if you don't know it already, that's my email address, rob@robtrek.com. Just email me either a link to it, or if you can attach it. It would be best if I could see the raw file, though. So if you can attach at least one raw file to the email, that would be best. Because that'll give me the most information, right? Alex is asking, do I think Olympus will give us a firmware update that will include high-res mode for the EM10 Mark? No, I doubt it. I don't think they will, because the EM10 Mark II, I don't know about the EM10 Mark III, but the EM10 Mark II doesn't have the same 5-axis image stabilization system as the EM5 Mark II, even though they use the same sensor. They have different image stabilization systems, and that's how the high-res shot mode works, is by moving the sensor via the image stabilization system. So they'd have to dedicate a team to program high-res shot mode specifically for the EM10 Mark II. And honestly, I don't think any other camera shares the image stabilization system with the EM10 Mark II. Yeah, I think it's from the old EM1 Mark II. But I don't know. But yeah, they're not going to do it. Long story short. Ansley says I look creepy in that hat. Thanks. Man, I like this hat though. See, when I put this hat on, even if it does make me look a little creepier, well, plus the lighting is not right, but in my head and in my demeanor, I feel more confident. So ultimately, I should do better with wearing that hat, and that's ultimately what makes it my lucky hat, right? Is because I feel better, and when you feel better, you start doing better photography. Hi Rob, do you think we could get a firmware update for the M1 Mark II that would bring 120 FPS slow motion, which is already... I don't think they'll do that. I don't know what the technical challenge is, but there's some technical challenge on the M1 Mark II that they're not able to bring in high-res shot, or I'm sorry, 120 frame per second. And my long shot guess as to why that is the case is because of the EVF. Because the EVF has a 120 frame per second refresh rate, which is double that of the M5 Mark II and the EM5 Mark III. The M5 Mark III has a 60 megahertz, a 60 hertz refresh rate. So I think there's some technical challenge there. It's a long shot guess of mine, but basically, if they haven't done it by now, I don't think they're going to do it. It just, I don't think because the processor's not powerful enough to handle it. I think there's a technical speed bump there somewhere that I don't know if they can overcome. Would the M5 Mark III be too small for someone with large hands? I was thinking about the extender, but the M1 Mark II might be... Yeah, get the M1 Mark II. The M5 Mark III is tiny. It's a very small camera. I mean, I got small hands. I wear size small gloves. I mean, or a girl size medium. Sometimes I buy girls gloves, but I buy size medium. But as you can see, this is the, I don't have, the M1 Mark II I'm using to record this live stream, so I can't show it to you. But it's a big difference. You're going to struggle with this camera if you have big hands, even if you buy the extra grip for this. Watch my video when I compare the EM1 Mark II versus the EM5 Mark III. I hold them side by side like this, so you can, and I talk about that extensively, about the grip and handling between the two cameras, and I think that'll give you a better feel for it, what I'm talking about. Oh, Bob is elaborating on Jamie Windsor's photo walked with Pablo Strong. He does amazing street photos and interviews some interesting. Yeah, he does. It's a great combo there. That video and the other channel, Pablo's channel. Vahi is saying, I have a Nikon D750 and considering the Pen F or X-T30 for a smaller package. Which do you recommend taking into account the lack of IBIS and lens choices? Well, having owned all of those cameras, I feel like the Pen F would be a better choice overall because of the lens package size. Because when you hold the Pen F right next to, say, the X-T30, they honestly, they look and feel about the same size, right? But the X-T30, when you start buying lenses for this thing, it grows exponentially. So if you're trying to trim down on size and weight, the X-T30 is not going to do it over the D750. It'll be better, no question, but not significantly enough. Not so much so over this. This will be a much smaller system overall. Now you're going to lose a little bit of performance in autofocus, and then of course low light performance. But for if you want to go small and lightweight and save weight and space, the Micro Four Thirds is the best way to go. I'd either stick with a D750 or get a Micro Four Thirds system. But this kind of in between is the APS-C cameras like the X-T30. The lenses are still pretty big and heavy for those cameras, especially Fujifilm. Their lenses are bigger and heavier because they're high quality lenses. There's nothing wrong with their lenses at all. In fact, they're very well made, but that's why they're kind of big and heavy. You could go with their primes. They have smaller primes like the 20, I think it's the 23 millimeter. They have a 35. What am I get confused because everybody keeps talking equivalents, you know. I mean, a lot of their primes are fairly small and lightweight, but there's no IBIS, and that's a big deal. Particularly if you're going to shoot in low light, you'll get better results with the Pen F with the IBIS. If you watch the video I just did yesterday that I published, you know, I took the Pen F out for night photography and it did fine. But yeah, I think if your goal is to go smaller, lightweight, I'd skip APS-C, any APS-C camera, particularly Fuji, because of the lack of IBIS and the size and weight of their lenses, and just go Micro Four Thirds. Don't you... Hog Dog is saying, don't you recommend using an adapter like the Olympus MMF3 with the 4/3 lenses? You know, that's a good point. I think, Hog Dog, you're referencing the question that Vishnu had about finding an affordable option. That would be a viable option, if not for the fact that he said that, you know, Micro Four Thirds was kind of hard to find. I would think the 4/3 lenses would be even harder to find than the vintage lenses with the adapter. But if that's not the case, I think Hog Dog has a good point. The 4/3 lenses with the Olympus adapter is a good option too, because those lenses are going for next to nothing also. And you'll retain, I believe, autofocus with those lenses. So thanks, Hog Dog. I didn't even think of that. You're right. Serge is saying the Cosina 28mm f2.8. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. That's an awesome lens. I think Tokina had their lenses made by Cosina. At least that one. It might be branded under Tokina. Is that right, Serge? Or does Cosina have their own branded lenses? What do I think about the 300mm? I'd love to have that lens, but I don't have it, so I can't really share any thoughts on it. It's one of those toy lenses for me. I don't have a professional need for it, and it's the kind of lens I'd only buy when I have lots of extra cash laying around, burning a hole in my pocket, but I don't. So, but by all accounts, I've heard it's an excellent lens. No one's ever said one bad thing about that lens, and it's extremely sharp. The person that would know, I don't think I've seen him in my live streams, but he has an Instagram account. Larry Hokie. If you go to Instagram and look up Larry Hokie, he shoots with that lens a lot for birding, and his images are incredible. So check out Instagram for Larry Hokie, Hokie, I think. And he shoots with Olympus cameras and the 300mm f4. And, just ask him in one of his pictures, comment, and I'm sure he'll be happy to help you with that question, because he actually has been shooting with that a long time. Wow, you bought that $20. Yeah, that's awesome, Serge. Alex, I would like to add a 442 58 f2. Yeah, that's a great lens too. The only challenge is that's an old lens. I don't think that's like a 1970s or 80s. I think that's back to the 50s and 60s, isn't it? It's just hard to find a good copy of those Helioses, and when you do find one, they're kind of expensive, relatively speaking. I mean, people tell me they always buy them for like $30, $40, but every time I go to look to find one, a good copy of one, they're like $80, $90. And it's a bit tight, that focal length. You're talking 116mm equivalent. That's a little tight, but it's workable. It's a poor worker who blames his tools. A reflection of your skills. Yep. Another quick question. Should I change the 14 to 42 with a 12 to 50? I can get a good deal on one. Plus a 45 1/8, all for $300. That's pretty good deal if they're throwing in the f1.8, the 45mm. So the question is, you have the 14 to 42. Should I get the 12 to 50 plus a 45 f1.8 for $300? That's a pretty good deal. Honestly, the 12 to 50 for me is not a lens I would ever buy. It's just too big for what it is. Even with the power zoom, I don't zoom much when I'm in video. I don't know. That's a tough call, because the 45, even if you bought the 45mm alone for $300, that's not a terrible deal. And the fact that they're throwing in the 12 to 50, I don't know what I would do, to be honest. I think I would just buy a 45 for $200 used. Because you can buy those used all day long for about $200 and save my $100 and forget about the 12 to 50. That would be my recommendation. Use that $100 and buy maybe a body cap lens like the 9mm fisheye, or a wide angle adapter for your kit lens. I mean, there's a lot better use for that money for $100 than a 12 to 50 lens. John's asking if I could only have one lens, what would I take with me? Oh, with the EM1 Mark II, the 12 to 40 Pro. If I could only have one, because the 12 to 40 Pro with the EM1 Mark II, man, that's like bread and butter. That thing, that's That's the perfect combination there for travel. I just got the 45. Can I get a witness? Will the focusing be faster with that instead of the kit zoom? It'll be faster in low light. The 45 millimeter, because it has the wider aperture, is going to focus much better in low light. I think from point A to point B type focusing, say you're trying to focus on something close and then you need to focus on something far away, there won't be much difference in terms of overall speed. But in terms of being able to focus in lower light, it'll be a lot faster. Roman's saying it'll focus twice as fast, the 45 millimeter. Really? I don't experience. You know, I don't know if I can say that in the sense that I can't tell that it's twice as fast. Maybe it is in absolute terms of focusing speed, but in real life, I can't tell that much difference between the two in terms of focus speed. I mean, I got a battery in here. Okay, maybe you can hear this, right? I got the kit lens on, right? Let me put this out. All right. Hold on. I mean, that's pretty fast. All right, now let me put the 45 millimeter on. I mean, I'm in fairly decent light here, not great light, but I mean, this is the 45 millimeter. See what I mean? I mean, it feels the same to me, to be honest. I mean, that's not exactly a scientific test, right? But that's why I answered the way I did, is because I just don't perceive any difference, really. Now, in low light, that 45 will definitely focus faster, though, because of the wider aperture. And I was shooting with the EM10 Mark II, not the EM5 Mark III. That was the EM10 Mark II with the 14 to 42 kit lens and the 45 millimeter. Roman's saying, I wonder why they did the EM5 so small. They cannot make a camera which sits well in men's hands. The Pen F with the extra grip and the EM3 is big enough, not the camera itself. Yes. You know what it is Olympus has been making small compact cameras for so long. And let me show you something. Oh God, I almost dropped that thing. You know, most of my camera drops when I drop these are at home, not even when I'm out in the field, but when I'm home. I need to put padding everywhere in my house. Then I won't break so many cameras. I want to get something. I'll be right back. Okay. This is their OM1 camera, right? Is this my OM1? No, this is my OM2. OM2N. But this has got the motorized grip on it. But yeah, they've just been making small cameras forever, right? Like when I put these two side by side, they're almost the same size. I mean, this one's bigger. And you know, there's no grip on this at all. And this is kind of their design language, right? So it's one of those things. People that like Olympus, they like it for sort of their design language history. And I think they've been trying to stick to that for a long time. And sure, they do add, you know, a little bit of a grip. Like here's my EM or my Pen F, same deal, right? No grip at all. So I had to add a grip to this one that you see here. So if someone were to ask me why don't they make cameras that are a little bigger for people, it's just not in their DNA. You know, they always want to make the smallest, lightest camera. Hi, Alan. How are you? Elaine's asking, if you don't have a manual and such, where do you find out which camera you have? I bought off eBay and only know it's an EM5. Yeah, you have to look. I put tape on all of my cameras. Hold on, here's one. I don't know why I do that anymore. It's really a waste of tape. But yeah, right here at the top, it'll tell you exactly what it is, right? EM5, EM5 Mark II. If it's the EM5 Mark II, it'll say Mark II right here. If it's not the Mark II, it'll just say EM5. So that's the only way to tell. That, and I'm sorry, the best way to tell is if you take a picture with the camera, look at the EXIF data on the image itself, and in the EXIF data, it will tell you the exact model number. You can look at the EXIF data in Olympus Workspace software. If you don't have Workspace, you should get it. It's free. You can use another software called Irfan View. I'll just type it in here. So just search for that software, Irfan View, and you can look at the EXIF data with that. I think you need to load the plugins. Just download Workspace, and that'll tell you exactly what camera model you have in the EXIF data. In the camera, or in Workspace, they call it camera information. So the 4/3 lenses are abundant. Okay. I haven't shopped for 4/3. You know, the only time I look for 4/3 lenses is at my local camera store. That's really the only way I buy used lenses. And they don't have a lot of selection there. Thanks for the info, Rob. I get autofocus hunting on the EM10 Mark II on anything approaching low light, which forces me to use manual focus. Yeah, it's I would say when I'm in low light, approaching low light, I still do pretty well. I mean, even in my room here, let's see, what am I at? My auto switch broke here. I'm at ISO 200, 1/10 of a second at f1.8, so it's, even with all this lighting, this is still considered low light, and it's, hold on. Yeah, 1 or 2 hunts there, but for the most part, it's pretty solid. Alan, I just started trying the 7 Artisans 25 1.8. It's a manual. Okay. Roman's talking to Elaine. Alex is saying there's about 10 versions of the Helios ranging from 55 to 65. I have the 4th iteration. It was made in 83. Oh, okay. Yeah, I haven't looked in the Helios history at all. Everyone talks about the 442, which is a screw mount lens, right? And I know those are old. Good morning, Rod. Just woke up. This is better than I either catch you going to bed or waking up. At least I got you waking up this time. Oh, wow. I'm falling way behind here. Rob, I have the Mark 1 of the kit lens from 2009. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm shooting with the Mark 2. Well, I don't know if they call it Mark 2, but it's the R version. So that's in reference to the difference in autofocus speed between the 45mm and the kit lens. I'm using the kit lens version 2, and it seems to focus. Did they call it the version 2? Yeah, they call this a version 2. It focuses fine. Yes, Elaine, it's the original. You can also tell on the EM5, the original EM5, the screen doesn't flip out. The original EM5, the screen only tilts up like this. It doesn't flip all the way around. So that's another indicator. If you use Windows 10, what driver do you use to see EXIF data and explore for ORF files? I've installed official driver and sometimes Explorer crashes in folders. Yeah, I don't think there's been any solution to that. Now Olympus, and this was about 2 years ago, and this is something I read in a forum. Okay, this is not firsthand knowledge, but they said Olympus is working with Microsoft to develop a way to preview the raw files in the regular Windows Explorer. But that has not happened in 2 years since I read that forum post. And, you know, whatever driver you installed, because what should happen is when you install Olympus Workspace, that should come with the driver so that you can look at things in regular Windows 10. But they have not done that, so that tells me that they have not developed a driver that works. So I don't have a solution for Windows 10, unfortunately. Roman's asking, Rob, do I have any experience with the auto white balance inside does not work? I sometimes set it to underwater, and even then it's better than auto. Best, of course, is manual adjustment. Yeah. The only thing with indoor white balance is the tungsten lighting. You know, the amber tungsten lighting. You need to turn off keep warm colors off in the auto white balance setting in the menu. Make sure that's off. If your white balance is still off, yeah, it's not great. I have to manually adjust white balance all the time. I did find, however, my EM5 Mark III does a much better job with white balance than the EM10 Mark II. Where I'm getting very good white balance with the EM5 Mark III. EM10 Mark II, though, definitely with tungsten lighting, I still have an issue even when I keep warm colors off. Hubbard's asking, Bob, for the EM10 Mark II, could you show how to do back button focus and lock exposure at the same time? Okay, I have a video on that. If you search my channel for back button focus on the EM10, I walk you through all the steps to set that up because it's a little bit involved to talk about it on the live stream because I have to show you the buttons and things. I rarely use back button focus myself, but I'm going to refer you to that video. If what I show you now doesn't make any sense or is not clear, just refer to that video. Just search for back button focus on my channel and you'll see it come up. I did it specifically for the EM10. Let me refresh my memory a second. You have to do a couple of things. Okay, in menu A, the AF MF menu, you go to AL, you go here, hold on, AFL right here. And let's just talk about single point autofocus, right? When you click over to the right, you get this. And right now the default setting is mode 1. You need to change that to mode 3, like this. So that halfway pressing, oh wait, mode 1. Oh, it's been a while. Mode 1. Give me a second. I'm just refreshing my memory a bit. Oh, okay. God, what am I thinking? All right, there we go. Yeah, I was right the first time. So you go into mode 3, right? You put this into mode 3, like so. Click OK, and then you want to go here into the button dial menu B, and I'm going to program this button here, the function 1 button, to be the back button focus, right? So, and I'm not sure if that's the default setting or not, but you want to set function 1 button to AL AFL. And once that's set, okay, if I push this button, hold on. Now I'm having trouble focusing. Okay, there we go. But I'm just pushing this button, right? The function. I'll take my finger away from the shutter button just so you can see. I think that's what you're asking me. Let me read that again. For the M10, how do you lock focus and exposure? Oh, let me see if that's locking exposure too. So if I expose for this, oh, I'm in manual mode, so it's not going to change anyway. Hold on. So let me lock exposure on this light. Let me lock exposure here. Oh, that only locks focus. That doesn't do exposure and focus. So mode 3. That's not an option. Yeah. So you see how mode 1, and it says halfway press AEL and single point autofocus. That's where you lock exposure and focus at the same time. But no matter what mode I choose, I don't get that option. So yeah, there's no way to do that on the M10 Mark II. I'm sorry. If there was, it would be in that menu. So, Hubbard, I'm sorry. There's no way to lock exposure and focus. Faststone Image Browser is a free displays EXIF data. Okay, good. Thanks, Peter. Faststone. So you're saying your Helios is an M42 screw model that was built in 1983, Alex? Interesting. I didn't know they bothered with screw mount lenses after the 50s. But I'm not a vintage lens expert, you know. I messed up my lighting here. Nobody cares, right? Okay. Elaine, shoot, my lens just got delivered and they left a notice. I didn't hear them come. Oh, that sucks. Sorry, Elaine. You were here in my live stream while they were delivering your lens. Now you're not getting your lens. Man, hate when that happens. Any other Apple users out there? I use Apple Photos for minor edits to JPEGs. I am happy with it. Don't want massive software for editing. Yeah, I'm not an Apple user. Blind KKJ. Hi, Rob. Sorry if a similar question has been asked. Is there any M43 lenses you regret selling? I think I have too many lenses, but I feel like I would regret it. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I've never sold a M43 lens. Once I buy it, I keep it forever, which is true for most things that I buy. I have a hard time letting go. So I would say I've never sold a lens I regret selling. Because I've never sold a lens, period. Now, I have sold lenses before that were not micro four thirds that I don't regret. I used to have all of the Sigma Art lenses for my Nikon, the 51.4, the 24-105 f4, and the 18-55 f1.8. Those are the three Sigma Art lenses I had when I was just shooting Nikon. And I sold all of those three and just bought Nikon versions of it. Actually, I didn't even bother to buy another zoom lens. I just bought a Nikon 50mm f1.8 because I was so tired of carrying those heavy lenses around. And I said, you know what? Let me just get a 50mm f1.8. It's $99. And screw carrying all these heavy art lenses. So I have no regrets selling those lenses. If I hate a lens, I would have, like I did those. But all of the lenses from Olympus, I just love all of them. I'm not a big fan of my 75 because of the focal length, not because it's not a great lens. Plato saying my first M43 lens was a 20 f1.7. Looking for a wider prime. 17 is not much wider. Looking at the 12mm f2 from Ollie, but it's so expensive. Any alternatives? Let me think for a second. I think there is. But they're all manual focus. There's plenty of manual focus f2s and f2.8s in the 12mm range, Plato. But they're manual focus. I don't know of any. The only other alternative I might consider that's autofocus is the 15mm f1.8 from Panasonic. I think that might be a good alternative, and it's about $100 to $200 less than the 12mm f2. Another excellent lens is the 14mm Panasonic f2.5 pancake lens. I've heard excellent things about that lens except for one thing, and it shouldn't be a deal breaker, but the people have told me that the chromatic aberration is pretty rough on that, like the purple fringing. But you only have to worry about that, right? With tree branches and, sharp edges, right? It's not really a big problem for most photography. And even if you do get that, it's easy to correct in post. But yeah, I had one person say he couldn't stand it. And then I'd say more people say they love that lens than I've heard people say they can't stand the chromatic aberration. So I think the 14mm f2.5 Pancake from Panasonic would be a nice complement to your 20mm. And it's not that expensive. It's like, I see it for like $200. Brand new, I think it's $250. I see it on sale all the time for $200. I saw it on sale recently for about $190. But I think that would be a good choice. How do you reset focus when it drifts off? In video, using tracking, do you have to stop and start recording? No, I just half press the shutter button. And, you know, when I'm in video, that usually relocks it pretty quickly. I don't know if I can demo that, because I don't have a... I assume we're talking about the M10 Mark II, right? CC-RU. But this would be true for any of the cameras. But let me get a less wide. Well, I guess it doesn't matter. Let's see. I still have the 45mm on here, which is the worst video autofocusing lens ever. Let me put the kit lens on, because I know the 45 isn't great anyway. With respect to video, for photos it's excellent, but video, the autofocus on this is a little slow. So let me put this in video mode, or yeah, video mode. Set up continuous autofocus. I just go in program mode. So I hit the record button. Man, why is it so dark? Okay, let me hit record. This is what I mean about the questions are getting harder here. Because now you're asking me things I don't do all the time, but I've done it, you know, I've done it before. It's just been a while. This used to work. Okay, I'm focused on my hand. All right, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I did make a video on this exact question, okay? It's one of my videos on doing video with the Olympus cameras. And in that video, I do show you how to reacquire focus while you're recording when it drifts. I just can't remember exactly now how I did it. But watch that video, CC-RU, on my channel about doing video. Let me see if I can find it without losing my live stream. I think it's episode number 170. So I have two episodes, 169 and episode 170 about video. And in one of those videos, I do show you how to reacquire focus while you're recording video. So I'm sorry, I just can't remember now how I did it. Okay, let's see. I think MS does not support out of their photo display. Chuck is saying, I think Microsoft does support ORF in their photo display program. That's possible, but it's not supported in the File Explorer is what I'm getting at. As I recall, I tried to display an ORF file, and if it came back saying here is where to find the right file to add. Oh, interesting. Okay. So Microsoft's photo display program will tell you where to get or how to get the right file to add. All right. Yeah, give that a shot. I forgot who asked that question. Give that a shot. I've never personally tried to go that route because I use Workspace or Lightroom. Oh, CC, we're using the M1 Mark II. Okay. I'm sure that video that I referred you to will apply to the M1 Mark II as well. Yeah, Alex, when you have pressed the shutter in mode 1, it will lock exposure and focus, but there's no way to do back button focus and lock exposure. You can only lock the focus. Ken is asking, do you have any experience using the smallest focal points in the Olympus cameras? I've tried but can't decide if there's any major difference. Yes, I have done it. It's very helpful. Let me read the question one more time. Do you have any experience using the smallest focal points on the Olympus cameras? I've tried but can't decide if there's any major difference to the normal one. It does make a big difference. I use it for when I'm doing my bird photography. And when I'm doing my bird photography, I use the digital teleconverter. Not because I want that double zoom. I mean, that's why, actually, but I use the digital teleconverter for two reasons. Because bird photography, I almost always have to post-process anyway. Because, you know, those birds, they have those very fine feathers. And post-processing, you can kind of tweak the detail a little better than just a straight-out-of-camera JPEG. But when you, and I can demonstrate that on this camera, I believe, if I have a battery for it. Oh. Yes. So I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. Now, ultimately, just focusing for normal photography, yeah, there's no difference. But that fine point comes in very handy when you're trying to focus on something at a distance. Then I use the digital teleconverter to kind of punch in. Oh, that's why it's black. I got the lens cap. Actually, I was doing that exact thing. But here you can see, let me turn off the digital teleconverter. So, like right now, I touched the screen, dang it. So this is the fine point, right? That you're talking about. And yeah, there's not much difference for normal photography. But when I turn on the digital teleconverter, right? When I use that fine point, I get a much smaller point, and it helps me nail focus in between branches and leaves. When I use it this way. Ugh. Yeah, just like this. This will help me focus, because if you compare, see, this is when you use the normal focus point. See how much bigger that is? So that's how I use it, the fine point, and I think that's kind of the intent of that particular feature. Okay. So Ken, hopefully that answers your question. There's not a difference in just general photography, the focusing ability, but for pinpointing focus in between trees and branches and things is very helpful. And that's how I use it. And I don't care about the digital teleconverter part when I'm doing bird photography, because I know the raw image will still be the full width. Yeah, Robin's, nobody's going to be here. I didn't even advertise this live stream until the last minute. So yeah, nobody's going to be here but you guys. The best ones are here today, right? Hello, Rob. Quick question. Hello, Terry. Yes, I can see the difference. I can see the OR files, even open them in Windows Photos without a driver, but there's no EXIF data. I will stick to Adobe Bridge. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's another area I don't really get into. I just use yeah, Adobe or Workspace. John is agreeing with me. Thank you. Okay, Ken. Okay, so I answered your question. Good, good. I used to shoot Sigma lenses on the Sigma SD1M. They're great. Regarding AF on non-native cameras, I think there'll always be some manufacturers share codes with lens ones. Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing with third-party lenses. That was the other problem I was having when I traded all my Sigma lenses in when I was shooting Nikon, is it would say I had focus. I'll hear the beep on the point that I want, but then when I got back home and looked at them on the computer, they were out of focus. So there's always that issue too. Sometimes that the lenses have there's some variance sometimes in the autofocus. Cal's asked, do I ever pre-manual focus? I do when I'm using manual lenses. I don't really do it much with my autofocus. If I was shooting with the EM10 Mark II, I used to pre-manual focus near the general area so that the lens is already kind of set in that general area, but then I would just use autofocus from there. Because what I found is if the lens is focused very close and then you quickly point it up to try to focus something far away, sometimes it'll hunt a lot. You know, so what I do is I'll pre-focus out to a point that the general subject is, and then I'll use autofocus from there. And then I don't really have any problems. But pre-manual focus, I only do that with manual focus lenses in my street photography. And I did it a lot when I was shooting dogs at the dog park. So if you look at my Flickr page, it's Flickr at Rob Trek. There's a lot of pictures there where I was using a manual focus lens, like the 50mm Nikon or the 105mm Nikon, the 135mm Nikon, all manual focus lenses. And I would pre-focus into an area and then use continuous shutter as the dog was running through that sort of trap zone. I think that's what they call it. Bob has asked me, any experience or thoughts on the EE1 dot site for birding? No experience with it at all. There's a few people that have told me about it through the live stream, and they said they love it, I think. But I think Matthew Gasquet on YouTube, on his channel, he did a review on the dot site that you can watch. Matthew Gasquet, it's Gasqui something. I think his channel's called Mirrorless Lessons. He does a pretty good review on the dot site that you can check out if you haven't seen it already. Okay, Plato, good night. Man, you got to get up at 6. That sucks. But thanks for coming in. All right, what time is it? Maybe, man, this is another two-hour live stream. God, time flies. I can't believe it. I'll try and wrap this up by 6 o'clock, so like in 10 more minutes. So any other questions? I've answered probably half of them today. The other half, I just kind of referred you off to someone that knows better. Just don't use Sigma lenses on third-party cameras. That sounds backwards to me. Is that a joke? Don't use Sigma lenses on third-party cameras? I think you mean the other way around, right? Isn't Sigma a third-party lens? It's 1 a.m. in Romania. Man, I've been trying to ship something to one of my viewers who's in Romania. But they won't, my credit card will not let me ship there. The shipping company, I promised the customer or a viewer a free t-shirt from my website, not my website, but from my channel. So I put it in my shopping cart, and then when I try to pay for it, the transaction just won't go through. And I think it has to do with it. My credit card company and PayPal will not let me ship to Romania. I don't know why. Do you have any problems getting stuff in Romania? No, it's not an AMX card. It was just a Visa card. AMX, man, I'm not there yet. Problem with AMX cards, they all charge annual fees. I'm not doing that. Have I tried using old Nikon D lenses? Yes, I do. I got a 35 millimeter. Vahi's asking if I ever tried old Nikon D lenses on Olympus and how did they perform. They're awesome. I have the 50 millimeter f1.8. I have the 35 millimeter f2. As far as D lenses go, I think those are the only two I have. And what's really nice is even though they're screw drive lenses, so the autofocus is not working, so I have to manually focus. The only tricky part with the D lenses is the focus ring is very small. Man, I put everything out of reach now. I think all my Nikon glass is in a bag. I usually keep that one out though. That's a great lens. No, I put it away. Trying to organize my office here, and I must have packed it away. But yeah, the 35 millimeter, you have to stop them down a little bit though. They're a little bit soft, wide open, the D lenses. Don't buy any zoom lenses for that are screw drive, like the Nikon D lenses and zoom. I haven't found any of those to be very good, but the primes are excellent. The 35 millimeter and the 50 millimeter, both excellent lenses. The 35 millimeter starts at f2, but you have to stop it down to about 2.8 to get it really sharp. F4 is best. And then the 50 millimeter, same thing. F2.8 to F4, those things are tack sharp. And they're not difficult to focus, but the focus ring is very thin. Maybe my card only works in my country. I don't know. Try Revolut. I don't know what Revolut is, Alex. I'm sorry. Never heard of Revolut, so maybe it's not popular here. But there's so many things I have no idea what's going on in real life. I'm like in my own little bubble here with Olympus, right? And cameras. Okay, Vi, you use the 35 f2D. Yeah, it's a great lens. I use that lens in my comparison between full frame and Olympus. That video I made about why I don't miss full frame. I used the 35 f2D on my Nikon. And that's the reason I bought the Nikon D750 and the D7100, is because those cameras can still use the screw mount lenses, and there's so many good lenses that are screw mount. I use PayPal when I buy something abroad. Yeah, Ken, I tried with PayPal, but it would not let me. It would just not go through even with PayPal when I tried to ship something to Romania. Revolut is an international credit card. Oh, okay. How's this art? Hey, Robert, how should we set the focal length for IS setting in the camera? Do we need to change the settings every time we change the lenses, or is there a general setting for that? No, you have to change the IS setting every time you change lenses. With the exception, well, not an exception, but the Pen F, the EM5 Mark III, the EM1 Mark II, those three cameras, and I assume the EM1X, but EM5 Mark III, EM1 Mark II, and the Pen F have lens profile settings that you can save in the camera, so that all you have to do is select the lens profile, and then it will set the focal length for you and put the EXIF data into the image file, so that when you pull it up in Lightroom or Adobe Bridge or whatever, you know what lens and you'll know what lens you put in, and then the image stabilization will be tuned to that focal length. But you have to set it up. Oh, Haas, you have EM10 Mark III? Yeah, you don't have that feature then. I was going to show you on the Pen F in case you had this camera. You can do it on the Pen F and some other higher-end cameras, but not on the EM10s. None of the EM10s. Even the EM5 Mark II doesn't have this feature. The EM5 Mark III thankfully does, but not the Mark II. So it has to be kind of a Pen F or newer camera, or higher camera, I should say. Rob, what is your suggestion? Only two systems now have in-camera focus stacking, M43 and Phase 1. What makes it hard for small format camera manufacturers to get it? I don't know. I mean, Olympus does it because that's, like I said, that just like their camera bodies and styles is kind of their DNA. Olympus does it because they try to put as many things in their camera as they can. So they design the camera and the lenses from the ground up to support that feature. Now, not all lenses from Olympus support focus stacking, but they do make several lenses that do. Like all of their macro lenses do that, and the kit lens does it, and I believe the 40 to 150 kit lens also support the focus stacking. So there has to be that synergy or technology between the camera and the lens to support focus stacking. And a lot of manufacturers, they even though they might be able to technically, software-wise, create focus stacking in the camera, apparently there's another step there where the camera and the lens have to be able to communicate to work with the software. And a lot of manufacturers just didn't do that from the ground up like Olympus has. So Olympus got a head start on it, and I think that's why they have it and a lot of companies don't. Okay, if I haven't answered a question that you asked earlier, you can go ahead and ask it again, because it's easy for me to miss things on this scrolling live chat thing. Because it happens all the time. I'll go back and watch my live streams after I, finish one, and I look at all the questions and make sure I answered them all. And every time I find somebody I didn't answer a question. But okay, looks like there's no other questions. So, man, I appreciate everybody that came in on short notice, because I didn't post any notification I was doing this live stream until last minute. I'm really impressed that I got like 50 or 60 people in at one point. So thanks for coming in, and I'm gonna try and do live streams at this hour every week. Most likely on Thursdays, because most of you, this is a better time than it is on the Sunday mornings that I do, Sunday morning my time. You just saw me live and clicked. Hey Roman, the Leica monochrome. I think, yeah, I commented back to you on one of the videos that I was thinking about a Leica CL, because that other guy, I forget his name, Matthew something. He just did like 5 cameras that, 5 cheap cameras, and there was a Leica in that list. And by cheap for Leica, like less than $2,000, right? That might be within my budget. I mean, I know I just said like a $500 lens is not in my budget, but that's a lens. This is a camera. A Leica, right, for less than $2,000. So I don't know. Can they do vignette without changing the white balance? Oh, no, not that I know of. I've tried a couple times, but I know what you mean about the white balance. It's not the white balance, they're tinting the images. I mean, the white balance is correct, but it's tinted. That's interesting though. I wonder if there's a workaround though, because if you know what they're tinting it by, you can adjust the white balance before you take the picture and offset whatever tinting that they add to the art filter. That'd be an interesting little experiment. But you think Windows has a raw file converter or raw file driver now? Okay, maybe. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, if you can figure out what the tint is on the art filter. And which one was it? Were you talking about one of the vintage, or are you talking about, oh, the pinhole filter? Well, a lot of the filters you can add pinhole later. Pinhole effect to it on the art filter. So you need to find an art filter that has like the easiest one to correct for white balance. What would that be though? Because all of the art filters, they tint or they actually manipulate the individual colors. So it might be, that's a tough one though. That would be tough. But I'll give that some thought. If I think of a workaround, I'll put up a 2-minute video and say, this is how you do this. Maybe I should do that, you know, like do some like 2-3 minute videos instead of these, because they would only take me a few minutes to make, and they'd only be a couple of minutes long versus, you know, like that photo walk video with the monochrome. Oh my God. I spent, only about 2 hours between driving and walking and doing those monochrome shots. But I swear to God, 8 hours editing that video because someone had asked me to put all of the EXIF data, right? Not EXIF, but the exposure information, the f-stop, the shutter speed, the ISO for every picture in the videos. And I said, well, okay, I can do that. I mean, man, but that added a couple hours to my what do you call it? Editing. And I'm not complaining, you know, I'm happy to do it, but a little 2 or 3 minute video would be kind of cool. When it needs to use anti-shock. Okay, I'll answer this one more question, then I'm going to shut it down. But I think you're asking, when do you use anti-shock? Generally, I use anti-shock. I turn it on always if it's available. And I think it is in most of the cameras. And the idea is to reduce the shutter vibration from the shutter mechanism. I have a video on how the shutter mechanism works. I can't remember the name of it. Let me see. Okay, let me refer you to that video, and that will explain a lot better than I can. Okay, shutter. It's episode number 88. So search my channel for episode number 88, and that will explain the anti-shock shutter, how it works. And then you can kind of think of ways to use that. Because once you understand how something works, then when you're out in the field, it'll come to you, oh, maybe I should use anti-shock, right, for this scenario. But anti-shock only works to shutter speeds up to 1/320th of a second. And anything faster than that, it doesn't work. Stephen Conrad, hi Rob, greetings from. Oh, and the other reason you use anti-shock is when you're using flash. You would have, you know, flash and studio work where you need the least amount of vibration is why you would use anti-shock. Okay, so hi Rob, greetings from Nova Scotia. In your opinion, does the Olympus workspace have enough features for basic adjustments? Ooh, basic, yes. Very simple. You know, I use it. If you're pretty comfortable with getting the exposure and composition that you want out of the camera to begin with, then workspace is going to be fine, because then you only have to do very fine adjustments. It's good enough, and you can dump Adobe. I mean, I have to use Adobe for my pro work, but yeah, I think workspace, because workspace still has the exposure adjustments, so you can slide the exposure back and forth, and it has very minor highlight shadow adjustments. Nothing that you can't already do in the camera. It's the same thing. So there are some very fine things, but if you're trying to recover highlights or recover shadows more than 1 or 2 stops, and that's not a big range, right, in photography, you need to stick with Adobe. You're going to get much better results. But if you just need to tweak the exposure a tiny bit, add a little sharpness, things like that, yeah, workspace is fine. But workspace really sucks at saving highlights and recovering shadows. It's really terrible at that. The only exception would be is if you're very good using the little tone curves that is available. But that's a pain in the butt. I'd rather pay $10 a month or whatever it is for Adobe, or consider getting using Darktable, which is free, and another free software is Raw Therapy. Those have very good shadow recovery modules in them, similar to Adobe. So I think for like 90% of your photos, you'll be able to use Workspace. And then for those few where you need to recover highlights and shadows, raw therapy or Darktable would be a very good option in those cases. And you can cut the cord, so to speak, with Adobe altogether. All right, I'm gonna wrap it up. Thanks again, everybody. Hopefully that answered your question, Steve. And thanks, Kent. Okay, I'm gonna hit it. So you guys have a good weekend. I'll be back Sunday morning Eastern Daylight Time.